Good afternoon. First of all, I wanted to apologize for Zoom problems again this morning. I think I have it, well, I think I have it figured out. I've been back by the IT help desk and should be able to actually Zoom the class on Tuesday morning starting at 8 o'clock. Today, I wanted to take a few minutes to go over what we talked about in class for those of you who are expecting Zoom or a Zoom recording. In your first module for this first week, one of your readings is research and critical reading, in addition to what the difference is between analysis and summary and the two articles on zombies that you are supposed to read in order to write your summary. Part of the reason that reading and critical reading is so important is because doing research and writing a research paper always starts with reading, and not just reading for entertainment or reading for directions or to make plans like we talked about in class today, but critical reading, interacting with the text. And today I wanted to go over what research and critical reading is in that using that frame. Good researchers, which you will be when you write your research project by the end of the semester, researchers and writers examine their sources critically and actively. And I know in Comp 1 you probably talked about the criteria for good sources, the CRAPP method, the CRAP method, where it's credible, reliable, accurate, all those things that are important to using good sources. But it goes further than that. You don't just compile and summarize the research sources to use in your writing. You create your own ideas and theories from that research. Reading is also at the heart of your research process. No matter what kind of research and sources that you use, you will always be reading and interpreting the text. So what kind of reader are you? And we did this in class today. We made a list of readings, things that we'd read in the last 24 hours, and they included social media, writing and reading a text, message, a news outlet online, and Amazon, scrolling through Amazon. And then we talked about the purpose of that was to find out the latest on the COVID statistics, to purchase something possibly from Amazon, to make plans through a text. Those were the reasons that we were reading those texts. But what were our reading strategies? How did we read those texts? One of the strategies that one of the students talked about is that you skimmed the text, just looking for keywords. The one who suggested or said that they read the news about the statistics for the COVID virus on a news outlet online said that he read every word from the first word to the last. Those are strategies in reading, and it depends on your purpose. Those strategies we form without even knowing it, without even being aware. We use those strategies to read the text. So, what were the results of our readings? The text was making plans for later on in the day. Amazon was possibly purchasing a desk, and the news outlet was just knowledge doing. So, those are the texts we read and the strategies we use, and for what purpose. All right, critical reading, which is the kind of reading that you will do when you do research, is interacting with the text through listening, writing, having conversations, and questioning. Critical reading is proactive. We push and shove to make meaning of the text. Just reading a text is not enough. We have to know and we create what it means. All right, text presents ideas, not absolute truths. We all believe that if we read a textbook that it was the last word on that subject. That's not true. The text that you read is never the last word on that subject. Not even the best researched and written text is absolutely completely finished. It can be updated, it can be added to, it can be disproved even. The other thing that we talked about, and this is in your reading, you read all the details about this on under Researching and Critical Reading on it's under Module 1 on Moodle. Rhetorical Theory of Reading, written by Douglas Brent in 1992. These are some details about that theory. Brent treats reading not only as a vehicle for transmitting information and knowledge, but also a means for persuasion. If you remember in Comp 1, persuasion, or writing an argument, was not about completely changing someone else's mind. It's about getting them to think differently, or just even think about your point of view for a moment. Knowledge is not simply what one has been told. Knowledge is what one believes, what one accepts as being at least provisionally true. Knowledge is what you believe to be true from what you've read, and from combining what you've read and with your experience. The way we believe or disbelieve certain texts clearly varies from one individual to the next, and that's because we're all individuals. We all have different experiences that we bring to a text, which leads to the point that readers are guided by personal beliefs, assumptions, and pre-existing knowledge when interpreting text. Each of our experiences is different, and we therefore construct different meanings in different texts. Readers react differently to logical proofs presented by the writers, and they also react differently to emotional and ethical proofs. If you remember in Composition 1, you talked about ethos, pathos, and logos. That's ethics, emotional appeals, and logical appeal. We all react to those differently because we all have different experiences. All right, our repertoire of experience that we bring to a text, Brent says, is a primary factor that influences our decision to accept or not accept an argument that we read in a text. This means that we read a new text, we don't begin with a clean slate or an empty mind. We have experience. However unfamiliar the topic is that we're reading about, we approach it with a large baggage of previous knowledge, experiences, points of view, and so on. When it comes into our minds, this text could not change our view on that subject, not completely because of our experience and our background, our baggage of previous knowledge, as he calls it. And again, you can read more about this reading theory in the text on Moodle. All right, applying this theory to research, writing, and reading, okay? The purpose of research is not simply to retrieve data, but to participate in a conversation about it. When you do research and you use sources in your own writing, you're creating a new conversation about that topic. Then there's no such thing as an unbiased source. Like I've said several times now, we all come to a text or to writing with a certain amount of our own experiences. Therefore, we all have some kind of bias. So feelings can also be a good source of reason for belief. Readers and writers need to use this judiciously, as the text says, and not react. We respond to the text, not react. And lastly, research is recursive, meaning that it goes back and forth. All right, so how do we go from reading to writing? The difference between reacting to a text and responding to a text, which is what you want to do. You want to respond. Reacting to a text is often done on an emotional level, not intellectually. Responding to a text, on the other hand, requires a careful study of the ideas that are presented in arguments in the text. You look at them, you discern in the text what's really going on. All right, strategies for responding, not reacting. Remember, we want to respond, not react. When I think of the word react, I think of overreacting. What happens when we overreact? We become unreasonable, and we lose our credibility. So Let's respond to the text, not overreact or react to it. So start out by reading the text several times, taking notes and asking questions. Study why the author presents these ideas and arguments and convictions. Where are they coming from? Study the purpose and the intended audience of the text. If you're reading a journal, a peer-reviewed journal, you are probably not the primary audience. It's probably to other experts in that field. Look at the text through that lens. Figure out who the intended audience is and the purpose. All right, study the history of the argument as much as possible, especially highly controversial issues. If you will look at the history, then you can see how it's progressed. All right, study the social, political, and intellectual context of the text. Good writers use social conditions to advance their controversial ideas. What was true 20 years ago may not be true today. I think we can see that even in our own social issues going on right now. All right, consider the author's and your own previous knowledge of the issue that you're reading about. All right, here's some strategies for connecting your reading and writing, your responses to the reading and writing. Underline interesting and important places in the text. This means you have to have the text in front of you. I know that you're probably going to be reading most of it on a computer screen, and that's probably not possible, but maybe if you print it out, you can make notes. As you take notes, ask questions, agree or disagree, question the evidence, offer counter evidence. Remember that the text is not the final word on that subject. You have the right to ask questions about it. And then here's some other, and this goes on to list other suggestions which you can also read in your text on the reading in Moodle. Also, write exploratory responses. Talk back to the text. This is kind of like writing a summary of what you've just read. Use reading for invention. Once you've made all these notes, you can take your responses and start your formal writing projects. I think we talked about, or I know we talked about invention in Comp 1, how we would come up with all those ideas, mapping and listing and free writing. After you read the text, this is a great place to do that, to kind of take what's in your mind and put it on paper. All right, you can use a double entry journal, make columns. The left column is for writing words, sentences, quotations that jump out at you. In the right column, you write your reaction or response to these in the left column. And finally, don't give up. Sometimes text and your research are going to be hard to read because they're going to be using terms that you may not have ever read before. They may be talking about things that you've never considered before, but don't give up. Keep reading it. Keep asking questions. Your assignment is to read the 2 articles about zombies, keeping in mind what we've just talked about responding to text, not reacting. I know in class today we were talking about, what's the first thing you think of when you read an article about zombies. Some said it's just not true. It couldn't happen. And so try to put that aside as you read these 2 articles and respond to the text, not react to the text. And then write a 75 to 100 word summary that is due by Sunday night at midnight to be posted on Moodle. If you have any questions, please email me and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Again, I'll see you on Tuesday.